may have heard about my incident in December of 2021 when my roof box popped open on the highway and the winds were so strong that my cargo net couldn't save my gear from flying out. I didn't find out about this until like an hour later at a gas station. I drove back like 15 minutes and looked at the side of the road, looked on the road, and didn't come across anything. I kind of took it as a sign from fate that I should get a new tent. I started lightly researching a new tent, but at the time I didn't have any extra cash and it was off season for backpacking. 3 weeks later, I happened to be driving down the same highway. I paid attention as like stuff started to like appear on the side of the highway, and I saw my tent bag snagged under a tree on the shoulder. Pulled over, got my tent back, got some other gear back. But did I take that as a sign fate was telling me to just keep my tent? It's totally fine, no big deal, Bink. Get over the fact that you hate the front entry and you hate the narrowing footbox. And if you got stuck in a storm, you would have no way to comfortably hang out in your tent. Forget the tiny vestibule which barely fits your pack, let alone shoes and any other random gear you decide to throw out there. Just suck it up and deal with it. No, I took it as a sign from fate saying, here's your tent, just in case you need something, but you don't have to buy anything just yet. Flash forward to the summer of last year. I was going to hike the Tahoe Rim Trail with my friend KK. He knew I was not a fan of my tent, and he had recently purchased a Zpacks Duplex XL. It was going to go out on its maiden voyage. He was willing to lend me his Tarptent Stratospire for my shelter needs. Unfortunately, due to KK's injuries, I was only able to sleep in this tent for 2 nights because we got off trail. I was already starting to like the extra space of having a 2-person tent, even if it was just me. KK trusted me to take his tent out on the Colorado Trail later that summer, where I really fell in love with having the extra space. Setting up the tent wasn't as hard as I expected it to be after only using freestanding tents in the past. I really liked a lot of the aspects of the tent. It did have 2 vestibules, as well as a bunch of space inside and a ton of headroom. I was able to comfortably sit in it during plenty of rainstorms. Having the luxury of being able to see the Duplex XL in person and in action on the TRT, I really liked a lot of features of the tent. It had 2 vestibules as well. Space inside was massive. It was easy and comfortable to sit up, plenty of room to spread out, and super spacious for someone who's only 5'6". In October, I pulled my fly creek out for the first time since the highway incident. Noticed that a clip to secure the tent to the pole was broken, there were some snags on the floor, and there were some tears on the stuff sack for the tent and for the poles. I climbed into it more or less to see what it was like and try and figure out if did I really hate this tent or not. I realized this is not for me. This is just too small. I'm not happy with this. I'm not gonna lie, every night while backpacking, I have a pack explosion in my tent. It's really a bad habit. It's just easier for me to be able to see everything and easier for me to get set up for the night. Floor space was a big feature. I really wanted it in a new tent. I considered a few options, but to be honest, when I narrowed things down, it was between the Duplex or the Durston X-Mid Pro 2. They're both right around the same price point, about $700. I get it, it's not cheap. I had compared the 2 tents. They're really similar products. They're really similar as far as weight goes, as far as setup time and space. But the thing that stood out the most to me was the location of the trekking poles. Both tents require 2 trekking poles. The Duplex, the trekking pole is kind of right smack in the middle when you open up the door, whereas the Durston, they're offset to the side. So if you're opening up your door into your vestibule, there's no obstruction there. You kind of have free reign to move around and you're not bumping into it either climbing out or with your hip in the middle of the night, and that happened a lot in the Stratospire. So overall, that's kind of what made me choose the Durston over the Duplex. I'm sure the Duplex is an awesome product. I know plenty of people that love it, and I'm sure I would have been happy with it as well, but when all was said and done, that feature difference was really what stood out to me. Granted, the Durston does not have interior pockets because I bought last year's version. I got a little bit of a deal from someone selling off their version that they purchased last year that they were never able to use, and saved probably about $80 or so overall. And she had promised it was new in the box, never been pitched, never been pulled out, and that was definitely true. If you watch me in the video, I had some trouble getting it out of the packaging and out of the stuff sack the first time because it had been so compressed and just stuffed in that box for who knows how many months. There's a couple things that I overlooked when I was setting it up that I didn't realize I might need, which was extra guy line. That's something I'll grab between now and my first trip. I don't have a trip planned yet, but definitely gonna get one on the calendar. This tent took probably longer to set up than intended, only because I was just double checking everything, but honestly, super easy. 4 basic stakes, rectangular pattern, boom, boom, trekking poles. It doesn't give you height to put them at. I put them at 115, it seemed to be okay. Otherwise, it was really really easy setup. One feature that was unique to me is the magnet to hold up the door for the vestibule. That's kind of different, but if it works, it works. I mean, I didn't have any issue with it coming apart when I was out there, and believe me, it got super windy at one point. Unfortunately, the camera was off, but I was like, well, here's a true test of how well this will stand up to the winds. It did fine. With only 4 stakes, I believe at the time, the magnet stayed in place. There are 2 vents, one on each vestibule. To get a good idea of the interior size for myself, I went ahead and pulled out my Sea Summit sleeping pad, blew that baby up, got it in there, and there was still extra space at the foot and the head, and of course extra space for a second person. Not gonna exist in my tent, but definitely enough room for me to just spread out all my gear at the end of the day, get sorted, get things ready, and be able to have like just that comfort and thing that I need at the end of a backpacking day, which is like unloading mentally, physically, literally everything. And I just happen to do that in my tent. I think it looks great. It seems to be great. A little more see-through than I'd love it for it to be. Not really necessarily a private person, but I change in my tent. Who doesn't? So that's really the only like thing that kind of stuck out a bit. I did get spoiled by the Stratospire having pretty thick walls. It was also heavier than this tent though. Either way, I really look forward to checking it out on trail, and I will give you guys an